When I look back on that day, I still remember how ordinary it seemed in the beginning. I was making my usual morning coffee, glancing out the window of our small suburban home in Ohio, when my son, Ethan, walked into the kitchen. He was 25, a young man with big dreams, still figuring out his path in the world. Ethan had recently started a new job at a marketing company, and though he came home tired most evenings, there was a spark in his eyes that told me he was excited about the possibilities. "Morning, Mom," he said, rubbing his eyes as he sat down at the table. "Morning, honey," I replied, sliding a plate of scrambled eggs in front of him. "Big day today?" He shrugged. "We have a meeting with one of the firm's biggest clients. My boss wants me to sit in. Kind of nervous, honestly." I smiled reassuringly. "You've always been good with people, Ethan. Just be yourself. They'll see what I see." He gave me a grateful look, and I felt a wave of pride. Like any mother, I had worried about him after college. He'd bounced between part-time jobs, unsure of what he wanted to do. But this job seemed like a step forward. What I didn't know then was how much this job, and more specifically his boss, would change everything for us. Later that week, Ethan asked me to meet him after work. "Can you pick me up today, Mom? My car's acting weird again," he said over the phone. "Of course," I replied. "I'll be there." I drove downtown to his office building, parked outside, and waited. The tall glass structure loomed above me, reflecting the afternoon sun. As I sat there, I noticed people streaming out, laughing and chatting, briefcases in hand. Finally, I saw Ethan walking out with a tall man in his 40s. His suit was sharp, his posture confident, and he carried himself with the air of someone used to being in charge. Ethan waved at me as the man glanced toward my car. That was the first time I saw Mr. Carter, his boss. Ethan slid into the passenger seat. "Mom, this is my boss, Daniel Carter. He wanted to say hello." Mr. Carter leaned down and smiled politely through the open window. "Nice to meet you, Mrs. Miller. Ethan's been doing a fine job. You've raised a good son." Something in his tone made me feel instantly at ease. He was professional, warm, and there was a sincerity in his eyes. I thanked him, and he shook my hand before walking away. That might have been the end of it, just a brief encounter. But fate had other plans. A few days later, Ethan came home looking uneasy. I was folding laundry in the living room when he sank into the couch. "Mom, Mr. Carter wants to talk to you," he said quietly. I frowned, confused. "To me? Why?" He hesitated. He didn't say. Just that he wants a private conversation. Said it was important. I'll admit, my heart skipped a beat. What could my son's boss possibly want with me? A million possibilities ran through my head. Was Ethan in trouble? Was something wrong at work? The next evening, Mr. Carter called and asked if I could meet him at a quiet coffee shop across town. My curiosity grew heavier with each passing hour. When I arrived, he was already there, seated at a corner table. He stood when he saw me, ever the gentleman, and shook my hand again. "Thank you for coming, Mrs. Miller," he said warmly. "Please sit." I sat, trying to mask my nervousness. "Is something wrong with Ethan? You said you wanted to talk about something important." He leaned forward, lowering his voice. "No, Ethan's not in trouble. Quite the opposite, actually. I wanted to speak to you privately because I've been noticing something extraordinary about your son. Something I think you should know." My heart pounded. I gripped the edge of the table, unsure what he was about to say. Mr. Carter went on, his voice calm but earnest. "Ethan is one of the most promising young employees I've ever had. His ideas, his dedication, his creativity, it's rare. He has potential far beyond this company. But I can tell he doubts himself. He holds back, as though he doesn't believe he deserves success." I swallowed hard, emotions welling in my chest. As his mother, I knew this already. I had watched Ethan struggle with self-doubt for years. To hear his boss recognize it, and care enough to bring it to me, was overwhelming. But then Mr. Carter said something that left me utterly shocked. He leaned closer, looking me in the eye. "Mrs. Miller, I want you to know something. Behind every successful person, there's usually someone who believed in them when they didn't believe in themselves. I can see you've been that person for Ethan. The way he talks about you, The way he credits you for his resilience, it's clear. I'm telling you this privately because sometimes mothers don't hear enough about the impact they've had. Your son is going to do great things, and you've laid the foundation for that. Tears burned my eyes. I hadn't expected such words, especially not from a man who barely knew me. All the years of sacrifice, of late nights, of worrying whether I had done enough as a single mom, they all came flooding back. And here was my son's boss, validating it in the most unexpected way. For a moment, I couldn't even speak. I just sat there, stunned, trying to hold myself together. Finally, I whispered, "Thank you. You don't know what that means to me." Mr. Carter smiled gently. "You deserve to hear it. And Ethan deserves to know that people see his worth, even if he doesn't yet." We talked for another hour about Ethan's projects at work, his potential future, and even about life in general. Mr. Carter struck me as not just a good boss, but a genuine human being. When I left that coffee shop, my heart felt lighter than it had in years. That night, I told Ethan about the conversation. At first, he looked embarrassed, running his hands through his hair. But when I repeated Mr. Carter's words about his potential, I saw something shift in his eyes, like a light had been switched on. "Really?" he said that. Ethan asked quietly. "Yes," I said, squeezing his hand. "And he's right. You need to believe it too." Over the next months, I watched Ethan transform. He started volunteering for more responsibilities at work. He came home excited about projects, talking about ideas he wanted to pitch. Slowly, his confidence grew. And every time I saw that spark in him, I remembered Mr. Carter's words in that quiet cafe. Sometimes, the most shocking things aren't negative. They're the truths we never expected to hear, spoken at just the right time. And in that moment, I realized something even deeper. We often underestimate the power of our own influence as parents. We worry, we doubt, we question whether we've done enough. But then, every so often, life gives us a glimpse of the truth. My son's boss didn't just remind me of Ethan's potential, he reminded me of mine, too. The quiet strength I had carried all those years mattered more than I knew. What Mr. Carter said in private didn't just shock me. It healed me. And it set my son on a path I know will change his life forever.